This is my audience. Hello, my name is Christopher. I am a mechanic. I work on cars every day and I deal with a lot of situations with them. One thing that is very important with your cars is the fluids that you put in it. There is a multitude of different fluids and they range from very important to you can run it without them. But I'm going to help you go through and teach you about the ones that are generally more important. The first ones I'm going to start with is I'm going to start with oil. So oil, or engine oil, is what you would use in your engine. You have to get it changed roughly every 5,000 miles, and with newer engines, they're even pushing up to 10,000 miles. Now, what the oil does is it lubricates the engine, so the pistons and all the other components in the engine move frictionlessly and easily. One other great aspect about it is they have a detergent in them, which is usually calcium. And this is used to clean the engine and keep it clean so it doesn't gunk up and get stuck or anything like that. And because it can do everything, it also cools the engine because it lubricates it, it's water, it kind of cools it down. So that's one of the great things about oil. And so with it, you have to know the different types. Now, a lot of modern engines, what you want to use is a synthetic oil. So on here, this is a synthetic oil. And what that is it's basically man-made. It's fake oil. It's chemically made and it's not real crude oil. So then the other types would be a conventional oil. Now that would be crude oil. Of course, it has the other stuff added to it to give it the cooling and cleaning effects. But when it all comes down to it, it is just regular oil that you come out of the ground. Then they make ones that are called a blend. And basically, it's what it is. It's a blend between conventional and synthetic. This is kind of the middle of the road if you're trying to get a little bit better performance out of your conventional oil, but you don't want to pay synthetic prices because this is more expensive. The other stuff about oil is it has a weight. So this is 10W30. So the 10 stands for the viscosity that the oil has when it's cold. So when the oil is cold, it acts like a 10 viscosity. And then when the 30 stands for what it is when it's hot. So when the engine heats up and the oil heats up, it acts like a 30 viscosity, and that makes it more fluid. So the lower the number, the slower, the higher the number, the thinner. And that's essentially it with the oil. You really can't run an engine without it, so I highly recommend you put it in. Next up we'll have is coolant. Now, coolant is very important because it does what it says and it cools the engine. This is generally what you put in your radiator that is up in the front of the car that has air passing through. And what that does is it cools down the engine. It has little ports that run through. Now, what it is the mixture of antifreeze and water. This is a 50-50 blend, so it's 50 antifreeze, 50 water. Now, antifreeze is basically a chemical blend that we've made that keeps it from freezing. Because if you live in any harsh climates, like up north or in Canada and stuff, that you're going to reach temperatures that would freeze water. The last thing you want is water freezing inside of your engine. That will cause a lot of issues. So what antifreeze does is it prevents that from happening and you don't have to worry about it. Now, the reason you want to do a 50-50 blend or 70-30 or whatever works best is that antifreeze isn't the best cooling liquid. Water does it a lot more efficiently. So if you're in a hotter climate, you probably want to run a little less coolant and a little bit more water. But if you're in a colder environment, more antifreeze, less water. It's generally just kind of, you got to gauge it about where you are and then, figure out your blend and there you go. But if you ever do water, you got to make sure you do distilled water because if you use tap water or hose water or anything like that, you'll have other minerals and junk that's in it and that could damage your engine and clog it up. Now, the other great thing about coolant is that it's easily replaceable. And then if it ever gets bad, you just drain it out, put a new set in. And it's really nothing you gotta keep on top of too bad. But if you ever notice your car getting hot, it's generally a good idea to check this out. And then lastly, what we have is a really important one, but it would be brake fluid. Brake fluid is essentially just kind of a fancy hydraulic fluid, because all you do is when you push the brake, you're creating a displacement, and then the lines, that's what pushes this fluid and then clamps the brakes. That's essentially what this is. You always want to make sure you have it, because if you run out of brake fluid, either by like bleeding your brakes or anything like that, if you get air in the system, you will have dead spots, and that may make your car not engage the brakes, and that would not be fun. So brake fluid isn't something you really got to check all that often, but it's generally a good idea to occasionally check just to make sure, because you don't want to lose these. These are something you always want. But those are about the 3 important fluids that go into your car. Of course, there's other ones like transmission fluid, and some cars power steering fluid, and windshield wiper fluid. But if you don't really need that if you gotta worry about it. But yeah, I mean, there's just all kinds of fluids, but I'd say these are probably some of the more important ones that you wouldn't want to drive without. So thank you, and goodbye.